Shabbat shalom.
So stand up together. Let's stand up together. Thank you, Abba, for this day of life. Abba, we thank you that in the midst of the frailties of this clay that we dwell in temporarily, that you continue to empower us to fulfill and complete what you've called us to complete and fulfill. We thank you, Abba, for this Shabbat and for this day. Abba, we ask that your Ruach, your Spirit, that your breath, that you breathe into the nostrils of the first man, Adam, that we would have a fresh infilling right now from your Ruach, especially on this Shabbat Hagadol, for this great Sabbath just before the Pesach, to be internalized and embraced and claimed to be ours as individuals and also collectively. But as individuals first, we thank you, Abba, that you were thinking about us the whole time your Son was nailed to that tree. We thank you, Abba, as he walked through the streets of Jerusalem, that we were on his mind. When he spoke and cursed that fig tree, he wasn't trying to create a circus act. He was making a declaration that he was transferring an authority that a religious group that became corrupt thought that they were walking in. He obtained and he had all along. And that he was transferring that authority into the very hands and hearts of his disciples, of his Talmudim, of his friends, those who he has called friends. So we thank you, Abba, that we are extended branches to the final frontier of the manifestation of that fruit at the ends of those branches. That we happen to be that generation that has stood up and that has remained standing, and having done all to stand therefore, to be clothed with the beauty of your Ruach, of your Spirit. Abba, we don't want to be the same after this. We don't want to be the same after this season. May our minds go back in time and look and embrace the work that the Mashiach has done at that very moment, and to go all the way back to when our ancestors were enslaved in Mitzrayim, pressing through the muck and the mire, building idolatrous buildings from that muck and that mire, no matter how beautified they might be. And even today, tourists go to all the different countries to look at these beautified, idolatrous muck and mire buildings and statues. Abba, we remember through our ancestors what you have set us free from. And Abba, we know that we were in a personal Mitzrayim, a personal Egypt, where some of us, many of us, maybe all of us, created idols out of the muck and the mire. But you have sent your Son to pull us out from the muck and the mire and to clean us up by the precious blood of the Lamb of Elohim. That precious Lamb, the Word made flesh that shed his blood for many. That through the blood of the Master Yahushua HaMashiach, we are forgiven. The bondages of sin and death are broken. And we are free in him. That he is the firstborn of many brethren. He is the firstborn from the dead. Therefore, we have a hope and a promise of partaking of that same beauty and that same power. We thank you, Abba, for this Shabbat. We thank you for this day that you have given us. We didn't deserve it. And we say Shabbat Shalom. Give your neighbor a quick hug.
Shabbat Shalom.
High five. Whatever it is you want to do, an encouraging look, something. Give them something so that they can go home with something.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Man, isn't that incredible? Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Abba. Who says we can't be excited just because we embrace the Torah? Embracing the Torah does not mean you become a stick in the mud. It doesn't mean you become a statue of some sort with zero emotion and zero movement. That's not what it's all about.
Amen. Amen.
To receive the rest of the good news ought to bring an excitement every single day like never before. The Creator of all things handpicked us.
Amen.
That alone ought to make you do a backflip, even if you've never had training in gymnastics. You ought to be doing backflips up and down the aisle. Who says the energy, that energy in that church you came from, that some of you from that Pentecostal church, you know what I'm talking about. Who says you can't keep the good and discard the bad and have that excitement and that joy to express to the world saying, you know what? I am redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Reserve and all the gold and the silver in the world. Just give me a little portion of your spirit that will keep me excited about what you have done and what you are doing in my life. I never want to grow cold. Keep the lamps burning on my menorah. Keep my menorah filled with the oil of your spirit. We did not come into the Torah to become Pharisees and Sadducees. We came into the Torah because we had no idea what it truly meant to live a set-apart life. But thank you, Abba, that you chose us. And you used the avenues that we walked through to bring us into this time and into this season. And that's why the enemy is so angry and hates you and I. You know why? Because you came to the fullness of the gospel, the good news of the Besorah. Of the Besorah. You have been given a new garment that the world doesn't recognize, that you can't buy when you go window shopping, that you can't buy at Nordstrom's or some fancy store. You have a garment that was handpicked and woven by the servants of the kingdom from above, fit and framed only for you. We need to comprehend those things. We've been given the shofars. We've been given the tables of showbread. We've been given the altars of incense and the altars of sacrifice, as Shepherd John says. We have been given a Mishkan. We become that Mishkan. He says, I want to dwell inside of you so the world will have a legal way of knowing who I am. I want my light to shine through you with beauty and power and love and kindness that is extended to your families, to your neighbors, to your youth, to your sons and daughters abroad. Hallelujah. He didn't redeem us and save us to become sticks in the mud. We were gathering sticks and the mud to build up habitations for Pharaoh's fake gods that never even existed. So we were not intended to be sticks in the mud. And I already know there's no sticks in the mud here. So we're going to open up with a blessing of the shofar, Bernie. All the way from Argentina. All the way of, was it South Carolina? North Carolina, battled through the tornadoes and the storms with his eyes geared on coming back here just for you guys. So Bernie, with your handsome face, would you open up with the blessing of the shofar?
Baruch atah Yahuwah, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher gedishnu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'shmo kol shofar. Blessed are you, Yahuwah, our Elohim, King of the worlds, who has instructed us to hear the voice of the shofar.
yourself, there is no one good but the Father. So give the Father all the praise and the honor due unto his name with your praise and your shout just before we get started. Come on, everybody. Sound like professionals. No, you don't. You sound real. See, professionals, they're still actors. You're not actors. You guys are real. That's how it's supposed to be. You know, you ought to shout every day when you get up.
I do!
You know what? Some of you in here, it's been a little tough week. I'm going to tell you, without going into detail, me and my family came through a hurricane just moments ago. But I'm here on behalf of my family because I love y'all, I love you guys, and no weapon formed against us will prosper. Every tongue that will come against you in your house in any domain and dimension and realm, we condemn that tongue.
That's right.
And those words to return where they came from and manifest where they came from and never come near your dwelling places. We're the King's sons and daughters.
Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
Did you guys really know that?
Yes.
Passover season is always one of the most challenging because imagine being in slavery for 210 years. After a while, you get used to it. You think that's all there is. All of a sudden, your hope that was once big becomes very small and is probably put in one of those little vases up in the shelf in the back behind the pepper. No, behind the white pepper and Himalayan salt. We serve a mighty Elohim who created. We need to really, really comprehend this. We serve the only creator, truly, who created all things.
Yes.
Who declared that Jerusalem was the apple of his eye, and that Israel was and is his firstborn.
Hallelujah.
And we just happen to be Israel.
Amen.
The apple of his eye will come down from the heavens above one day, the New Jerusalem, and we will forever, ever dwell with the Mashiach.
Whoa.
Forever.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
Forever. Forever. Leolam Vaed. Forever and ever. So let's get right into this. Is this all right? Three of you? We're good. Hey, there's three. As long as we get three somethings, we're good. That's going to hold us together, right? As long as you have three strands, they're not easily broken. So are we ready? Is this all right?
Yes. Yes.
We got 60th doubling every time. That's good. So let's say this together. Shema
Israel, Yahuwah, Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah Elohim, Yahuwah Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchut Olam Vaed. Praise be the name of his esteemed sovereignty forever. Yahuwah Eloheinu, Bekol Levaha, Bekol and loving Yahweh, you should continue to love him with all your heart, and all your soul, and all your strength.
Remember, it's not a race. It's not like, okay, I'm going to beat my neighbor. I'm going to go. Let's say it together. Let's say it together. Each and every. I'm going to have to bring that down a notch. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart, and you shall continue to teach them early to your sons and daughters, and you shall speak of them when you sit on your mouth, and when you walk throughout the road of this life, and when you rise up, you shall bind them for a sign upon your hands, and they shall be a covering before your eyes, and you shall engrave them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. When the word came into this world, freedom enters this world with him.
Hallelujah.
Come on.
The whole Torah exists only to establish shalom on and in birth. The Torah's highest teaching is love and kindness and the restoring of all things. Love Yahuwah strength. And what is able to do not do to anyone. That is the Torah. Go learn their offerings one another, doing acts of kindness and making shalom within the assemblies. These are our highest duties, and the study of the Torah is equal to them all, because it leads to them all. Let us learn in order to do, and learn in order to teach all these words, and remain in righteous standing before our sovereign King of Kings, and Master of Masters, Yahuwah HaMashiach, Creator of all and lover of Israel, who comes for us soon. We want to bring our youth up so we can balance out the room. So youth, come on up. Come on up, don't be shy. Some of the youth are pretty cool. You can come on up. They're confident, they know who they are. Can I get some strong priests to come up here? Lorenzo, can you come on up, declare the blessing over our youth, our young ones? I just want to encourage the youth, continue to walk uprightly before the Father. Give your whole heart to Him. Young ladies, don't ever give your heart to a guy. Your heart belongs to no guy. Your heart belongs to the King.
Hallelujah.
The King who has that heart will fill that heart with His love, with His power, with His desire. And that man of Yah will see the heart of the King in you. And that's what's going to draw him to you. So just stay focused, stay standing, remain set apart, young ones. Kingdom establishers right here. Barrier breakers. The standing ones.
Yebereha, Yehovah, Veishvereha, Yair, Yehovah, Bonavnecha, Vihunecha, Isa, Yehovah, Bonavnecha, Veasenecha, Shalom. Yehovah, bless our sons and daughters, keep them, and Yehovah, bless you and keep you, and make the light shine upon you. Yehovah, place His countenance upon you and be gracious to you. Yehovah, lift His countenance upon you and give you shalom. Yehovah, as we say these words upon our sons and daughters, we ask that you continue to strengthen them and pour that wisdom that only comes from above. We give you thanks for this day, for the Shabbat of delight to us as vessels, that we continue to read and understand and be filled with your knowledge, Heavenly Father, and at the same time, that you strengthen us each and every day, that you allow us the time to sort our thoughts out and always make the right choice. In your heavenly, set apart name, Yahuwah Mashiach. We thank you. Amen.
So at this time, our youth, you're going to go to class, enjoy yourself.
Yeah!
All right, anyone need to use the restroom at that moment? Where those stairs are in the back, go up the stairs. Men to the right, women to the left. Okay? I was trying to get creative. Not gonna work today. All right. How many people study their Torah portion?
Yeah.
Which one was it? The Devarim? Just kidding.
Vaikra.
Which one? Vayikra?
And he came.
Powerful book. Vayikra, which is the heart of the books, the first 5 books, deals with a lot of bloodshed.
Mm-hmm.
To throw that book out, as some might want to do, not in here, but there's some out there saying, hey, we don't need that, is to disregard the instructions on how to draw near to the Creator. That's a book totally designed to teach us how to come close. That's why you hear that martial arts, right? Krav Maga, Karov. Krav means to come close. Maga means contact, touch, close contact. So the Mishkan, in a sense, was the origin of Krav Maga, close contact, where the enemy that would try to come in to defile and destroy the nation, as long as they were in close contact with the Creator, the enemies were annihilated and destroyed. The Father wants us to stay close, especially during the Moedim, not to waver away, but to stay close. And I'm going to share some stuff today that has maybe a few connections to the Torah portion. I like that how you guys sit in the back. Seriously, the ones in the back, you know what? Some pastors, they say, hey, you in the back, come on close. They get maybe they get insecure, I don't know. But what we're doing is us on this side of the fence, we sit in the back also to push those that aren't here yet to fill in those seats.
That's right.
They come, the malachim, the messengers from above that are in all those seats right now, they get up and if they were to speak, they say, I was reserving this one for you. And they stand by that seat, not knowing the individual. Is this true? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. No idea that messenger was probably assigned to them at birth and been waiting. The Father's been waiting for them. So there's more coming. When they come, whatever that is, or whenever that is, I have no idea. But I do know what season that we're in. And what I have for you guys today is going to be some insightful instruction, direction, just before Passover. So I'm not doing the Torah portion. I'm doing some. I did the Torah portion. So if you guys wanted, I can give that to you by fresh. So I did the Torah portion, and then 2 days before, a day and a half before, the Father just put this on my spirit. To give something before Pesach. So I titled it as the Prelude to Passover. Is that all right?
That's right.
So I don't have all the verses up there. I typed out a lot of the verses on my paper. And so you're going to have to turn to that. It's good. Get flipping through your scriptures to where you get like a nice little dirt mark across the middle of your Bible and get some of that gold off the trim. So it looks like you're reading it a whole lot. What's that saying? The Bible that's fallen apart usually belongs to someone who isn't.
Right.
So if you have a Bible that you've had for years and it just seems to be falling apart, who cares what's falling apart around you? You're not. You're not falling apart.
And I got another one.
That's called a switchblade. The little Bible pocket, that's the switchblade. This is the sword, and then you have the little pocket ones, that's your spiritual switchblade. Those are the ones you use when you go out witnessing, right? That's what I used to tell the witnessing team. Some of you are like, we don't play the switchblade game here. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've been pulling on his strength, I'm not kidding, all the way over here. I sat in the vehicle, I'm not, right now, I'm going completely off of his strength and his power. I'm telling you, I'm just letting you know. So just pray for me that I don't trip over any of these wires. We just thank you, Abba, for all that you do. So I have a question. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Will the real Passover stand up? Will the real Passover stand up? The finished work of the Passover gives him that seated position at the right hand of the Father. But over the centuries, the question just kind of resonates through the centuries, the millennia. Will the real Passover please stand up? You see, Israel awaited for the final frontier of deliverance for many years. Even in the midst of their rebellion, they awaited that final frontier. You know, in the first century, it was believed by many that the coming of the Mashiach, his second coming, was going to arrive decades after his ascension. So the second coming hope has been for thousands of years. And every year it seems like there's a closer and closer, this is it. This is it. This is it. Oh, this year. Oh my gosh. That's it. He's coming. Why is he coming? Because nothing's working in my life anymore. He better come this year. That's usually what that is. And those who have it well, they're probably like, no, hold on. Just wait a minute. No, hold on. Let me just enjoy this for another 10 years. And those that are going through hell, it's like, no, please, Father, send your son now. It's time. But he's coming at the appointed time.
Yeah.
Not in our timing. At the appointed time. And that's very important. So we have now come to what is known as the Shabbat Hagadol. The great Sabbath just before Pesach. So humor me. There's going to be some watching saying, well, Passover is not to the 15th. Well, we're going to get into that. And we're going to get into a couple little things, ending briefly without argument on this unleavened bread stuff. And this leavened bread stuff. And the greater principles of what the Mashiach came to accomplish. It almost sounds like I'm throwing something out. I'm not going to throw anything out of the Torah. We're going to look at what the Torah says. But I do want to make a disclaimer through the teaching to keep me safe by Scripture. What Scripture says. What Scripture says, let's just do what Scripture says.
Amen.
But what if the rabbis said, well, you know what, that's not working. Let's kind of push things and merge certain things together. No, we don't need to be doing that. There is no such thing as for the sake of unity, let's walk out the rebellion. Forget all that. For the sake of unity, you know what? For the sake of unity what? Let's obey what the Father says. Hallelujah. Let's do that.
Amen.
Amen.
So that means that whenever and wherever you're going to observe the Pesach, within that week and a half, difference that's going on right now, there's a whole lot going on. Just come out of that idolatrous life before you sit at the Master's table.
Right.
Before you sit at the Master's table, don't bring the backpack of paganism and idolatry in practice, hidden sin with you. Take that off at the door and tell them to burn it. Yeah. Don't ever put it back on again. Try putting ashes on. There's only one time where you there's a few times where you put sackcloth and ashes on. Leave that ash at the fire pit. That's burned not even at the altar of sacrifice. That's just burned like they would the other idols. So when you come to the Master's table, as is very close approaching for us, right? Come with clean hands. Come with a pure heart. Maybe you're not perfect yet. We're called to be tamim, unmixed. That's different. When it comes to that English understanding of being perfect as if you have arrived into the kingdom, we have not arrived per se into the kingdom. We're walking this out, right? Yeah. So let's try to do our best to perfect what He has given us and beautify it to the best of our ability. So I'm going to give a few scriptures. And I'm going to get right into this. In Leviticus chapter 23, verse 5 to 7, you can turn there. Some of my translations are from the scriptures. Some of them are from the Hebrew Roots Bible. Some of them are like a combination of both. I try to put the better words in there. Some might say, oh, that's adding and taking away. No, it's not. It's just combining translations to try to capture the best hearing of the word. We're not doing that. You want that? Then you got to go get your NIV. No offense to anybody. Seriously, no offense to anybody. In the first month, on the 14th of the month, between the evenings, is the Passover to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And on the 15th day of this month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. You shall eat unleavened things, Look at this. And you can see in the Hebrew text it says davar. You can eat. See, we focus only on the bread. What kind of bread you got? Is that matzah? Well, they didn't have, is that matzah crackers? Well, they never made, there was no such thing as a matzah cracker in the history of Israel, in the wilderness or at the temple. It was more like a pita type bread. There was no way you walked into the temple and they had matzah cracker boxes all set up and you just, oh, I want that one. That one's a non-GMO box. Matzah crackers. I want that for my table. No, no, no. It was unleavened bread, and the way they made that, and we're going to look at some of the details. I'm not getting into all the deeper things. There's so much in there. But it was more like a pita type bread. So that you'd be able to dunk it. The sop, right, was like a pita type bread. If you did dunk a cracker, it would probably fall apart. You guys remember your chocolate chip cookies? You dunk, you want to turn it into chocolate milk. And sometimes the cookie, before you can bite it, it's like it falls in the milk. Like, oh shit, I'll get you later. Let me get another one.
I'll get it later.
But more like a pita bread to be able to do what the Mashiach did and presented to Judas at that time. But when you look up chametz, you're going to be shocked. So you're going to hear some stuff, I guarantee you've never read on Facebook. You've never even Googled it unless you went to the language to look at these things. You're going to hear several things I guarantee you have never heard before because it was fresh for me this week. Now, if you heard it, man, I want to go to your house because I'm a student for life. I want to learn the things that you've learned. But I believe that the Ruach has given us some fresh bread, manna, to partake of today to prepare us for Passover Monday. Some Sunday, some the 16th, 15th. You guys know, some at the end of April. So, wherever you are you guys all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys are getting me nervous. Are you nervous? A little bit? No? So you're like, get on with it, buddy. I have a goal to get to. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Here we go. Numbers chapter 9, verse 1 through 5. Oh, whoops, I didn't even finish the verses.
Right?
Leviticus 23, 5 to 7, the last parts. You shall eat unleavened things for 7 days. You shall eat unleavened things for 7 days. Look it up in the Hebrew. It doesn't say you shall eat unleavened bread, but there's many verses that talk about that. That's the focus. But the insertion here by the Creator through those who penned the book said during the 7 days, eat unleavened words. Davar, go look it up. I didn't make it up, it's just in there. You have those trusty translators who say, yeah, that doesn't make sense, let's put bread. Well, the word is like bread.
Yes.
So there's a truth to that. On the first day you shall have a set-apart gathering, you shall do no laborious work. Numbers 9, verse 1 through 5, I'm only going to read portions of this. Also the sons of Israel shall prepare the Passover in its appointed seasons. In the 14th day of this month, between the evenings, what I'm trying to capture and highlight with my voice is the phrase between the evenings, because this is where the controversy begins. Is between the evenings. Is it at night? Is it during the day? So I'm going to help us. Yeah. I guarantee you we're all going to walk away at least with a secure decision to be able to say, you know what, that made sense. Amen. His word makes sense. Yeah. Because that guy up there that doesn't know that much, he was bold enough to come out and say, all right, Father, this is what you want? Then I'm going to give it, and I know it's from the Ruach because all hell broke loose everywhere around us for some reason. I'll be honest with you. I text John. What did I tell you? I'm not going to be able to make it. An emergency, I'm not kidding. Transpired, I can't make it. And he says, are you kidding? What's wrong with you, man? What is your problem? No, he didn't say that. He's like, what? He's at home, like, with his feet up on the bed, watching, was it Popeye? No, he was almost here. But I said, please, I text Yahukan on too. I said, you know what, pray for us. This is going forth. So enemy, I know you can't hear us because the Malachim have blocked you out, but you know what? The words resonate for all eternity. Enemy, when you hear the words, just know that we delivered the message already. Amen. Yeah. And it's going forth. Numbers 9. Also the sons of Israel shall prepare the Passover in its appointed season. Verse 3 of Numbers 9. In the 14th day of this month, between the evenings, you shall prepare it according to all its statutes and according to all its ordinances. Notice, between the evenings on the 14th day. Exodus 12:6, and I'll give a little clarity of something. I don't know if I put it in there. I might have, because my mind goes like 1,000 miles an hour when I'm going through the verses. But in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, remember, the book of Deuteronomy is only part. The book of Deuteronomy that we have here, Devarim, is only 3/4 of the true temple scroll that was in the temple. And a big portion of the book of Deuteronomy we don't have. They took it out. Talk about leavened bread. Give me the whole enchilada. Give me the whole matzah. Save your questions. We'll get to those, please. I want to just get this out to you guys. But just know that the temple scroll was bigger than what the book of Deuteronomy is in our scriptures now, which the book of Deuteronomy is the ancient old temple scroll that was in there that the Essenes, they grabbed first before anything when the temple was being ransacked, and saved that out of the library amongst other writings as well. Exodus 12:6, and it shall be for you to keep until the 14th day of the month, and all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it between the evenings. Notice I'm highlighting for you guys between the evenings. Shemot 12:24, verse 26 to 27. Chapter 12, verse 24, verse 26 to 27 as well. And you shall observe this thing, et hadavar hazeh, this word. You shall keep this word, pointing to the Passover, for an ordinance to you and to your sons forever. And it shall come to pass when your sons and daughters shall say unto you, what does this mean by this service? And you shall say, it is the sacrifice of Yehovah's Passover, who passed over Pesach, over the houses of the sons of Israel in Mitzrayim. Numbers 28, verse 16. And in the 14th of the first month is the Passover of Yah. Notice when the Passover is. When's the Passover?
14.
But the whole controversy is who did what. Some say the Pharisees did things during the day, Sadducees at night, but there's controversy with that. A day begins from evening to evening. We have the prophet saying, in the book of Deuteronomy saying evening to evening. Some say no, the morning and day. The evening and the morning when the first day, and the Creator did all His works during the daylight. The Messiah says what? I know I'm talking fast, but just bear with me. It says, isn't there 12 hours in a day? Yeah. And that means there's 12 hours at night. Unless you live in Los Angeles or Hawaii or Alaska, Antarctica. But you get the picture. Isn't there 12 hours in a day? Okay, then that means there's no existence of the nighttime. No, there is. That means there's the other part of the hour system during the night. So the Messiah was pointing to things. And He cursed the fig tree, you guys. Remember that?
Yes, yes.
Right by where the Sanhedrin Council would pass judgments. He cursed the fig tree to let them know, no longer shall you bear fruit ever. Because you're not bearing any fruit. Imagine that, the Sanhedrin Council, just picture this. They're sitting on their seats. Nice little seating, right? All excited about what they're going to have for lunch, ready to pass judgment out of excitement, probably. There was a corruption there. And then you have a few of them. I believe Nicodemus was one of them. Joseph of Arimathea, I believe he was another one. When they saw this, they probably seen the fig tree wither right outside the window, like, what the heck was that? And they're looking right outside where they are, and they see this fig tree that stood as a sign of something great pertaining to what they were doing, wither away to nothing at the words of the one who created it. Yahuwah declared Passover to be a permanent celebration for all eternity, according to Exodus chapter 12, verse 2, in the whole chapter. Historically, Passover celebrates the deliverance of the sons and daughters of Israel from the bondage of Mitzrayim, where they were slaves to the Egyptians and building up all the idolatrous monuments and massive castle-type structures. The spiritual connection to Yehovah that He wants us to comprehend is that Mitzrayim is a type of the world. Egypt is a type of the world system. the bondage that the people are in when they live according to the ways of the world. This is the spiritual connection to this. So there's many connections to Passover and the elements that make up this Moedim, or this Moed, and they're filled with the simplest, listen, the simplest of knowing to some of the most in-depth revelations that can actually blow your mind. So these Moedim, Passover specifically, stands by itself. I'm going to show you some of the rights and a disclaimer up front. Can I give this to you guys? I do not teach the Talmud.
Amen.
But I will grab one or two quotes from the Talmud, and all that tells us is that they know. They have the information right in front of their face pertaining to who the Mashiach is. Specifically, Rabbi Ben Maimon. Excuse me. I almost said something. Maimon.
The Rambam.
The Rambam. Better. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Am I blushing a little bit? It's because I'm thirsty. I haven't drank water since yesterday, so I'm really thirsty. There's quotes that they have for the arrival of the Mashiach. Certain things he would do, and by his doing, that's who he would be. And when those sages of old made those type of declarations, everybody agreed with them. And when the Mashiach came walking in, fulfilling that and much more pertaining to Scripture, the religious leaders went, just push that under the rug. That was too fast. We wanted to enjoy the 10 years of our goodness. Remember the little dumb thing that I gave in the beginning? That was pertaining to those guys. So let's look at this. Pesach is the illuminated declaration of what? Being set apart. And this can be seen as the Melech Tzaddik matrimony. That's who he is. He's the Melech Tzaddik. And this is the set-apart matrimony invitation to those who are willing to come into something powerful and beautiful that he is doing. The matrimony of ordination into the very priesthood that has no father and no mother. Thank you, my brother. I do have a bottle of water too, so you guys don't mind? Pause it.
Pause.
Everybody just freeze. When we see people on the camera, when we pause like this. Thank you, Lorenzo. See, when we fulfill the Torah here, if you see your brother thirsty, you give him a cup of water, it's like giving it to the Mashiach. Seriously.
Yes.
So we do that. We see someone thirsty, hungry, we give them something.
Yes.
That's what we're supposed to do. That's why I love you guys so much. So it's a nation of Hebrews that were delivered out of Mitzrayim and consecrated to Yah, that had gone astray from the life-giving commandments, a little history, of the set-apart one. They were taken from a spiritual wasteland in Mitzrayim and mercifully touched by the hand of Yah and born into a new life found in the teachings of the covenant given at Mount Sinai. Over centuries, we departed from the Tov ways of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh tried to bring us back again and again, but like a wayward son and daughter, we would not listen. Little history of what's going on. Our only hope was to return to the ancient paths, the cycles of righteousness established at Mount Sinai, according to Jeremiah 6:16. Returning was not so easy after being entrenched in sin for so long. But nothing is impossible with Elohim. Do you guys believe that?
That's right.
Nothing. Teshuvah, or the returning to the mitzvot of Yah, starts inwardly. And then it flows outwardly into the entire body. This inward and outward change of heart has a term for thousands of years. It's known as the Brit Milah Halev. The circumcision of the heart, or what is known as being born again. Being born again is the cutting, circumcising of the hand of Yah through His Spirit of the over excess of flesh on the heart. He circumcises the heart. The heart is engrafted with the very sacred text of His covenant, His word, and now you have the beginning parts of being born again from above. Ezekiel 16:4. As for your birth, on the day you were born, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed in water for cleansing, and you were not rubbed with salt at all, nor wrapped in the cloth at all. No eye felt sorry for you, to do any of these for you, to have compassion on you, but you were thrown out into the open field to the loathing of your life on the day you were born. When I passed by you and saw you trampled down in your blood, and I said to you in your blood, Chaya, live. Chaya, live. To live, not just to exist. He says, I want you to become alive. With the life of eternity. Live. That's the resurrection power. The resurrection power is that life that is from eternity that cannot be touched by decay or entropy, death. That life of eternity is the one that touches us. Chaya, that spark that happens when the sperm and the egg hit, that little spark of life. That is a message telling us about a life of eternity. So there's a spiritual seed that seeks the womb of that egg. And when it makes contact, the seed of the word, a spark of eternity ignites your soul.
Amen.
Am I talking too loud?
No.
These mics are loud. These are good mics. And I said to you in your blood, live. He says it twice. Leaving Mitzrayim, Israel received their new birth, which is true salvation, for free. It doesn't cost you anything. That's why, I don't know if I should say this. I'm sorry, no, never mind.
Say it.
You guys are tough. You guys can take it.
Yeah.
But the guy on the camera probably can't.
True enough.
We should not put a price tag on the things of salvation.
That's right.
The
Absolutely.
laborer is worthy of his hire, but let the one who hired him pay the wages. You don't hear the donkey and the ox saying, okay, I'm going to plow that field. That's going to cost you $50. You want me to do it? $50. All right, we got a deal. The one doing the hiring, the one that hires is the Messiah.
Amen.
And his hiring process is simple. It's a simple application. Here's what it says on the top. It's a yes or no, the bottom, with a question. You guys ready for it? It's a simple, the simplest job application you could ever fill out. And it's this: are you available? Yes or no? Yes. Good. You're hired. And in the end, you'll receive what you receive. And during that process, I'll take care of you through your mishpokah.
Hallelujah.
That's how that works. But we're not supposed to put a price tag. I don't care who you are, where you come from. We don't put a price tag on the word.
That's right.
You know why I'm laughing? Because there's like a little Mexican jumping baby on a shoe. So he looked like this. He thought I was serious. So I better stay serious. So leaving Mitzrayim, Israel received this new birth. There was nothing that we could then or now ever do to deserve this free gift that cost us nothing, but cost the Messiah, Mashiach. The Word made flesh cost him everything. Cost him the very rivers of life that flowed through his veins. And we're going to touch on that. Leaving Mitzrayim, Israel received this. So think about this for a moment. The very actions performed, think about this, to the lamb in Mitzrayim, or we can actually say in Goshen, released, listen, so I'm going to get, there's little mystical things I'll throw at you, but I'm not going to go too crazy, all right? So this took place in Mitzrayim, but actually Goshen, and it released an unrelenting power that touched the firstborn of man and animal, of the Mitzrites, the Egyptians. The power of the Lamb that was slain commands the attention of the world and all who live upon it, whether you believe in the Mashiach, Yahushua, or not. If all you know is Jesus and you reject the Son of the Creator, the blood of the Lamb commands the attention of the universe.
Right. Amen.
I hope you're listening to what I'm saying, especially on the camera. And on the camera, you know who I'm talking about. The power of the Lamb that was slain commands the attention of the world and all who live upon it. The power of the Lamb takes the once enslaved Hebrew and brings that man and woman through the corridors of the spiritual umbilical cord and through the blood-stained doors of deliverance. We became Yahuwah's people through the blood of the Lamb on Passover night. When Yahushua was walking on this earth in the flesh, he had an interesting encounter with a man of the Pharisees named Nachdimon. I'm going to give you a little revelation of this guy. With his name too. It's very interesting. This guy was a singer. You didn't know that? He was a singer. Humor me, people. Look at this. Nachdimon. One of the many definitions of his name means one who is innocent of bloodshed. But that can be weighed. That can be weighed out. So let's look at this name before getting into some of the details of the Passover Prelude. I want to look at this man's name. I don't know if I have it up there. I probably don't. No, I don't have it. I don't have it, so I'll just leave that photo there. I only put a few photos up there, because I wasn't going to get all deep and crazy, but we have a lot to look at. Nachdimon. Collectively, his name means, or could mean, innocent of bloods. But the combination of his name gives us the phrase of this: clarity of pronunciation. So see, Nicodemus, think about this. He was part of the Sanhedrin Council, and there was a lot of things being said outside of the Bema seat, the judgment seat of Moses, where if you were chosen to read the Torah from the judgment seat of Moses, you better not have a PowerPoint. You better not have your own commentary. It was forbidden. That's why the Mashiach says, do what they tell you to do when they're sitting in Moses' seat. In other words, the better translation is, do what Moses is telling you from the seat of Moses, because that's all they're speaking are the words of Moses. But when they step off that seat, don't do what they're doing. For they say one thing and they're doing another thing. Don't do what you see them doing. They're a bunch of sepulchres. Beautiful on the outside, but inside are filled with dead men's bones. So don't do what you see them doing. Watch the fruit of what they do. If it matches what Moses said from that pulpit, pastors. If you are preaching from a pulpit, or you want to call it an altar, that's kind of cutting it really, really intense. Whatever you call that area, you better be speaking what Moses says. Not just the emotional, thus saith the Lord. And it's totally contrary to what's written in Scripture. We got a problem now.
That's right. Amen.
We got a big problem. So only do what Moses says. Don't do what you see them doing, because they're doing the opposite of what Moses says. That's called the leaven of the Pharisees.
Well,
Uh-oh. Give your neighbor a big bonai. Some of you don't even know what I just said. Just do it anyway. Just humor it. Give him a big bonai. What's wrong with this guy, man? Throw a high five to the back, ladies. Boom! Back here. Boom. It's just the name of someone, so I thought I'd throw that in there. Everybody says high five. I said, let's see bonai. This sounds different. No? Okay. There we go. All right, let's keep going. So Nachdimon, Nicodemus, his name would actually, when you break his name apart, Yamon, Nakad, Namon, which means to be clear, to clarify. To clarify what? The pronunciation of things. The beginning part of his name comes from the word Nakud, the little vowel points where the Masoretes put in to help pronounce the word. So there was a change of things by the Masoretes that bled over and confused a lot of people. So the Mashiach says to Nicodemus, your name matches your assignment. I want you to begin to clarify the message. Not to the people per se, but start where you sit. Impact them. And you know what? Shortly after that, Nicodemus, one of the 3 of the richest men during that time, became one of the poorest of them all. So you know what? There is the possibility, if you have it all going for you and you're in a religious high up position, once you start speaking the truth, things are not going to look like that for a lot longer. There's no way you should be rolling in a Rolls Royce. Or rolling in your 5.0 with your rag top down so your hair can flow. None of that stuff. That doesn't work. Was that Vanilla Ice? Sorry. Robert gave me that one for
Right on, brother.
In other words, clear up the pronunciation of what's going on. This is a little insight of him. Nicodemus, who was of the sect of the Pharisees, whose true name was probably the famous Nachdimon Ben Gurion. Do your homework on that. Also known as Bonai. This Pharisee named Bonai is also mentioned in rabbinic writings in the book section of Gittin 56a. So you can check it out. It's pretty crazy. This man was one of the 3 riches of the Pharisees, and Bonai Nachdimon became known as a disciple of Yahushua. The message of the Lamb, when communicated, will impact the very heart of those most religious men when the message is spoken from the very breath of the Master himself. So when the message of the Passover Lamb is truly communicated, I don't care how religious you are, it will impact you because we have the breath of the Master within us. It might not feel good in the beginning, because the Passover lamb, as innocent as it is and as quiet as it was, speaks very loud things to the lifestyles of all around the world. Kind of goes with it. I'll try to flow with that. Just hold your questions. We're going to get to some things right now. Any questions, hold on to them. We'll get to you guys. Write them all down and just shoot them. I'll bring John up and just nail them with all the It's good to have you back, brother. This guy, man, been working, I don't know, weird hours. He's here today. He was, before you guys got here, he was recording, doing backflips. I was like, go, brother, go, go. Kidding. I know he was excited to be here.
Yeah.
I love all you brothers, man. Brothers in here are, and you know who you are. Very faithful brothers, filled with power, and man, love you guys. The word or the name Bonai can also mean my builder. So Mashiach was building the kingdom on the inside of those around him. John had just declared in chapter 1, verse 29, that Yahushua was the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. Or can we say, at a more zero-in place where he was at, the sin of the land? Eretz can mean land, an established land. See, Jerusalem was established with a system. The Romans governing everything. And the Messiah came to remove the sin of the land. Bring it down, narrow it down. See, when we just be passive, the whole world, the sin of the world. I believe so. The blood of the Lamb is powerful to change the universe, and it's going to.
Yes.
But he was on a mission to flip Jerusalem upside down because it was corrupt and it was being run by the Roman government. And you had the religious people there who were really not sons of Aaron. You guys heard this before. Pretending. Isn't there a song called The Pretend, or a group called The Pretenders? Isn't there? So we say, yeah, let's listen to that before we finish Shabbat. He's right. That was a revelation. That's prophetic. This message rang through the religious corridors of that time, and the very Ruach that carried this message of Yochanan came through the streets of Jerusalem just as the voice of Yahuwah walked through the cool of the day when Adam fell. The message goes, looking for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Follow along with me with your whole heart and mind as I'm speaking this. The message of the Lamb is carried upon the wings of the Ruach HaKodesh, and when that message is heard, all know they have just had an encounter from the highest dimension down here on the earth. When you hear the message of the Lamb, you better believe that you have just had an encounter from the highest heavens above, if I can say that, right here on the lowest plains of the Malchut. The kingdom is down here. You have just been given a message. that is eternal, the Lamb slain before there was ever a land, an earth, a universe, if we can say that.
Amen.
Nachdimon was chosen and handpicked by the Master Yahushua to bring the message into the religious realm of Jerusalem. And what do you know? That Nachdimon has the same numerical value as Ha Moriah, the mountains of Moriah, Jerusalem. He was handpicked. His name is numerically equivalent to Ha Moriah, the mountains of Moriah, where the Messiah would be crucified, where all the sin was going on, and where Jerusalem was called the pretty little whore on the hill. Remove the pretty, the whore on the hill, the prostitute up on the hill, whose gates were open wide for all who would want to come pay her a visit. She was a prostitute. See, the Messiah is not looking for prostitutes. He sets them free. He came to set Jerusalem free. You hear that? Jerusalem was prostituting with other gods, and he said, even though Israel, you have went astray and wayward, I still will claim you as my bride. I've come to set you free. Woo! Try telling that to a man down on the earth, his wife cheats on him. It's hard, man, you know? He'll be like, no, forget that, I'm out. I'm done. And be at the club the next week, looking for his wife. Doesn't even know how to dance. Like, I'll just hold up this wall and just try to look handsome. It's not where you're going to find. When tragedy happens, your safe haven is in the heart and bosom of the Master. The Master's saying, a tragedy has come. Come to El Shaddai and let me nourish you for a season. And I'm going to nourish you with such beauty and love that you're going to glow again. Because you were battered and beaten and tarnished by a foolish man or woman. Let me fill you up so that you will glow again, and that glow will draw in the man of Yah that is truly designed for you, and the woman of Yah that is designed for you. The Mashiach came to reveal this power. He came to fill Jerusalem with life because it was filled with death. It would be upon these mountains where Yahushua, the Word made flesh, would pour out His blood. And in His blood we are forgiven and made free. The very esteem Yahushua had with the Father from the beginning is seen here upon these mountains. Oh, let me have that glory, that esteem that I had with you before the world ever was. What a powerful, life-changing statement in John 17. That's the prayer. That's the Lord's prayer.
That's it.
That's Yahuwah's prayer, Yahushua Mashiach. That's the true prayer of the Master. He's praying, John 17. He says, restore unto me the glory that I had with you before we ever created this place. And he says, not only that, the ones who I have placed my name upon, I have put your name upon them, bring them into this same beauty.
Wow.
Wow. Upon these mountains would be the place one is born from above, outside the camp, outside the city walls of a corrupt Jerusalem priestly system, and that resembled the Aaronic priesthood in the Mishkan in Solomon's temple, but lacked the Ruach of Yahuwah because it became a whore on the mountain. Idol worship and the bowing down to the Roman system, and brought in the foreign chartered vessel of counting heads instead of counting the power of redemption. So Pesach, the word Pesach, as you can see up there, Pesach is actually, there's several different words with this, but I want to break this word down. The letter Pe in the beginning speaks of the mouth. The last two letters, Sach, Samech, Chet, is the word that fulfills the phrase Pesach, which means what? It means the ability of our mouths to speak free again. And remember, it wasn't until the end of 210 years of time of the incubation or bondage process that a cry came forth from the womb of Mitzrayim. Exodus 1:8. Pesach is the season where we are free to speak of the truth of the Lamb. Our testimony is a spoken testimony, and our walk should match that spoken testimony. Many claim to know the Lamb, but yet their walk doesn't reflect the image of the Lamb of Yahuwah. These letters also give us several words, which are this: to be lame, to limp. So we see that the power of the Passover lamb breaks the power of the lame and weak and causes them to leap and rejoice in what has transpired in their life. Another Hebrew nugget in connection to Pesach: the ordinal value, the position of these letters, equals 39. Well, what do you know? The Passover was whipped 39 times. 40 minus 1. No coincidence. That was like for me. I threw that in just to remind me. It's like, just excite me again. So now let's get into, as I give you just a brief. It's just a brief, very brief little history of what has happened, Passover lamb, some power of the Passover lamb, not to belittle it. It's very extensive. But I want to tackle 2 questions. Are you guys ready?
Yes. Yes.
You better convince me.
Yeah!
Okay, Robert, take over. I'm kidding, you guys. I'm like humoring myself. I need a lot of joy right now. I have the joy of Yah, but I need that. So here's the 2 questions. I'm telling you, I was looking at some of the teachings we did in 2009 and 10. And boy, I really went rabbinic. I was like, shame on me. What the heck? 30 pages of stuff, 25, 20. I was like, whoa, my gosh. But that was a learning process for me, right?
Yes.
So here's the 2 questions. When is the Passover observed? Not to be answered right now. We're going to look at it. It's just a question, right? And the other one is the exciting one. To rise or not to rise? That is the question. You guys are funny, man. So look at this.
I got it.
So let's look at, I'm going to skip down. Let's look at some passage comparisons. Number 1, I'm going to give you like 4 different passage comparisons on when is the Passover observed. Leviticus 23, 5 and 6 gives us a distinction. And please, I beg you watching, stop emailing me the nonsense. Come on, you know who you are. I'm not going to answer foolishness. Keep the Greek stuff and Hebrew stuff that you're assuming. Stop it. Let's take the word for what it is. I got bombarded with stuff. I was like, what the heck is this? What are they doing? They're not even pronounced like Yahukanan. Where are you at? School these guys real quick. On the Greek, some kind of, I'm going to have to send it to you. The same thing you do, your avenue of expertise. I'd say that because you got a grip on some things. When it comes to place markers, someone sent me something. I was like, that's not what I learned. I was like, Yehochanan, where are you at? It was just really weird. So you know who you are. Don't do that.
Put it in the spam folder.
Please. Yeah, put it in the spam. How do you do that? I don't even know how to do that. I'm still learning. So look at passage comparison number 1. Leviticus 23:5 and verse 6. In the first month, on the 14th of the month, between the evenings is the Passover, on the 14th of the month. Chapter 23, verse 6. And then on the 15th of the month is the feast of unleavened bread to Yah that you shall eat. So on the 14th is what?
Passover.
On the 15th is what?
Unleavened bread.
And some say, no, they're the same thing. No, the rabbis did something while they were in Babylonian exile.
Yeah.
They merged them. The Torah is pretty darn clear. No matter how you shake, and yet I've seen the Dead Sea Scrolls already, so don't bring it. It is clear, very clear.
Yeah.
Keep the pictures, the hieroglyphics, don't send me that. Because the pictures that are being defined by some, not all, but by a couple that are out there, that came to me. Your hieroglyphics, you're trying to massage it to your conviction. Let the hieroglyphic pictograph definitions, like Eric Bissell, he has done an amazing job. Let the pictures match the text so it does not waver. The Hebrew text not the different translations. Make sure it's the Hebrew text. Comparison number 2 found in Exodus chapter 12, verse 6 and verse 14. And it shall be for you to keep until the 14th day, or on the 14th day of this month. Verse 14, and the day shall be a memorial for you, and you shall celebrate it as a feast to Yahuwah. For your generations you shall celebrate it, and it is a law forever. Comparison number 3. So we see so far Leviticus 25 verse 5 and 6 gives a distinction between Passover and unleavened bread. Right. Passover's on the 14th, unleavened bread on the 15th. And remember, I had mentioned what's known as Bein Ha-Aravim, or Arabim. Between the evenings. The discussion is there between the evenings. When does an evening begin? It depends what sect you are from. You had like 6 or 7 sects of Pharisees, and half of them did not agree with each other. You had a few sects of Sadducees. They didn't agree. And then you had multiple sects of the Essenes that battled on a religious platform. So some morning, some the crack of dawn, some when the sun went down, some during the midday before the sun, all before at night with the moon, depending on the moon. There's multiple things. So let's grab a hold of what the Father says in its most simplest understanding, comprehension. Don't try to plug it into religion, because then you're going to be dogmatic about something that can still be argued. Let's do what 1 Corinthians said. Let us observe the Moedim without that old leaven. Numbers 28, verse 16 to 17. Verse 16, on the 14th day of the first month is the Passover. On the 15th is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Numbers 33, verse 3, the last little comparison I'll give you guys. And they pulled up stakes from Ramses. I just thought I'd throw a little accent in there. In the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, unleavened bread. And then it goes back. On the next day after the Passover, the sons of Israel went out with a high hand before the eyes of all the Egyptians. Deuteronomy 16 verse 6 is the only opposing part of the rest of these things. But yet, I didn't want to get into that. You can see, just like the Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they don't all agree word for word on one thing, but they capture the totality of something. The same thing happens in the book of Deuteronomy with the other books as well, with several different things. We cannot get caught up in all the, is it the minutia? Is it minutia? Okay, the chametz. We can't get caught up in the chametz, I'll say it like that. So according to the scripture, the Pesach is distinct from Chag HaMatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it is observed a whole day before, which will make it the very beginning of the 14th, or some who go by the setting of the sun, the evening of the 13th, which would have begun the day before. According to the scriptures, we can see that just as Israel came out of Mitzrayim at night, we too eat the Passover as well at night. You know what? I went deer hunting with my father. And I remember he shot a buck. I don't know how far that thing was, but I know we were up on the mountain. You had to go down the mountain and up the other mountain, and he nailed that little thing that I saw running when I was 10 years old. He shot it with one shot. Nailed it, and I saw them gut it. Disgusting. I wanted to barf. I was 10 years old. I was like, what? Oh, I thought it was still alive too. I was like, what's going on? But it didn't take them long to gut it, and it didn't take them long to skin it, and it didn't take them long to roast some of that and cook it. It wasn't a long process. It was boom, 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 chop, gut. Israel, they were professionals. The Levites, servants of Aaron's sons, they were pros at sacrifice. They knew exactly where to cut, where to bleed, where to slice, so it bleeds out without being traumatized. They knew how to skin quickly, immediately. So you think they couldn't do that with a little lamb? Immediately. Fast. Wasn't no 24 hours. Oh my gosh, is that thing done yet? We're hungry over here. Gosh. Man, like some people with One, man, is he done? I'm hungry. Your stomach's growling and your neighbor's looking like, I think it's something else, so, eat before you go. So look at this. So this means that the lamb was brought in on the 10th of the month, was held for 4 days, and on the 4th day, which would have been the 14th, it would be slaughtered and then roasted and eaten that night. Deuteronomy 16:6 says this, "But at the place which he shall choose to cause his name to dwell," Jerusalem, right? "You shall sacrifice the Passover offering at evening, at the going down of the sun, at the time when you came out of Mitzrayim." This would be at the midday, maybe 3 p.m. or so, a perfect match to the death of Yahushua. And you see in some of the writings of Josephus, there were, I don't know how many priests during this time. Josephus clears up some stuff with some things. And he says that it was at the break of dawn that there were sacrifices like you couldn't imagine going on. Quickly, they were able to gut it, drain the blood, skin that sheep so fast that it would blow your mind. Like, whoa, what the heck happened? It's like just the sheep just took it off and just walked over there, the skin, let it and lay over on the fire. It was super fast. Faster than what we thought. It wasn't a mind-confusing thing where you're just like this, hey, where are we going to start? Go ahead, start. I'm not touching that. They were pros.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing. It was quick. They knew if we're going to fulfill this, to be able to leave at night, then we better start roasting it when the sun, skinning them and gutting them and all that in the morning, right? When the sun comes up, get all that set up and start roasting these lambs in preparation to be able to have a meal at night. It can get deep, very deep and lengthy in discussion on the evenings part of this. But I'm not going to do that. I want to present a question to all listening. Has the Lamb of Yahuwah, listen, met you between the evenings of your darkest times? Or is it just a simple argument to be right? Usually when people say, hey, you know what, send me a, not all the time, so I want to make sure this is clear. Usually when someone says, hey, can you send me an email on stuff? They're usually with the other guys, we're going to get them right now. Hey, just send, just curious, just know. They want to argue. That's called comments. You know what? If you're convinced where your mind is at and you cannot be moved, stop challenging others to, hey, what do you do? You want to fight and argue and walk away, darn, I won. You didn't win nothing. You failed. He wins. We don't. So think about that. Has the blood of the Lamb cleansed you of your sin? Has the blood of Yahuwah stopped the destroyer in your life? Did the blood of the Lamb speak chesed, mercy, and not judgment? Only you know your evenings and darkest nights where he met you when no one was around. The Lamb is personal. And we all must have our personal experience with the Lamb. And that is different for us all, even though it all happened at the same night. It all happened at the same night, but not all nights are the same. Where did he meet you at, and where did you meet him at between the evenings? That's why there's such an argument, even with the smartest rabbis of old, on what that is. In his wisdom, he left some things out to show us our heart where we're at. Even though we see a difference between Deuteronomy and the other 4 books, we can stand on the fact that Scripture brings a distinction to the events at hand. The following is from the Pinchas ben Zadok in Israel, who wrote this question and answer. Watch. Which day is Passover, he said. Very highly respected rabbi of old. And here's his word. The Torah clearly states that the Passover is in the 14th. With the first day of the 7th day feast of unleavened bread beginning on the 15th. Why then do the Jewish people today keep Passover in the 15th day of Nisan or Aviv? At evening, has any Jewish calendar show? The Karaites and the Samaritans will keep Passover on the 14th. The answer is actually simple. The reason why they do this, you know what the answer is? Why they changed it? Because of tradition. The traditions of men. When did this tradition get started? During and after the Babylonian exile. Perhaps even as late as the Maccabean era, almost 2 centuries before the arrival of the Word made flesh, the Mashiach Yahushua. And we learn this through historical progression. Look at this. After 40 years after the Exodus, Joshua 5:10, they didn't circumcise anybody else while they were in the wilderness. And if you're not circumcised, that means you can't partake of Passover. So the only circumcision that transpired is when they were in Mitzrayim. Then they partook of the Passover, and while they were in the wilderness, after they broke the covenant, no longer was any son circumcised. You had a whole bunch of excess going on in the wilderness. Because you can't circumcise into something that is broken. That's why the lamb had to come. So Joshua discloses that. Look what he says. Is this all right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we're good. Joshua 5:10, and the sons of Israel camped in Gilgal and prepared the Passover in the 14th day. Can you imagine after 40 years? Listen to me, please. After 40 years, they finally are in the place where they can observe the Passover and do what they have done decades prior. For the first time in 40 years. Do you guys even come? I can't. That's like mind-blowing. See, people anticipate Christmas. Hey, I can't wait till Christmas and Easter. We did at one time too, so don't be all like, oh yeah, they did. You did too. You did the big old giant Christmas tree. I want to put the star on top. No, I want to put the star on top. Every one of us did. Some are still doing it every year. But imagine 40 years, not to compare that to Passover whatsoever, but imagine 40 years of none of that. All of a sudden a son is born. Listen to this. And a father looking at his son, knowing that he can't keep the covenant given, sign of the covenant given to Abraham because the ancestors broke covenant with the Creator. They knew if I circumcise my son, yes, the action is saying I'm keeping the promise given to Abraham, but I'm circumcising him, and you can't undo that, into a broken relationship that cannot be restored if I do that. So imagine the heartache of the father having to be able to see the first son for the first time. The ones that were circumcised, they grew up. When they began to have sons, they had to look at their sons and know, I can't even put the sign of Father Abraham on you because of our foolishness. So after 40 years, they were excited. For the first time in 40 years. At evening in the plains of Jericho, and they ate the old grain of the land. On the next day after the Passover, unleavened bread and roasted grain in this same day. And the manna ceased on that next day after they ate of the old grain of the land. And there was no more manna to the sons of Israel, but they ate the produce of the land of Canaan in that year. In other words, they say, after a long season, you will fulfill the covenant of promise after your heart is circumcised. And you will eat the ancient word of old. And when you eat the ancient word of old, then you will partake of the inheritance forever. Hallelujah. That's power. I don't know about you guys, but that makes me want to jump up and click my heels. Woo! Yeah. The toe cramped up. That's powerful. 18 years into the reign of Yoshiyahu. Actually, my toe did cramp up. Let me get some water. That would be funny how on YouTube, that minister cramps up, they have it on YouTube. Someone in here puts it on and I'm like rolling on the floor with a cramped toe. It's just like pointed up. So look at this. We got 15 minutes, and I'll be able to be finished. I wanted to give you these examples. So we're going to kind of close with a bang. All right? Yeah. 18 years into the reign of Yoshiyahu, Josiah. These are mighty men. Mighty men. Joshua, picture of the Mashiach. Josiah, picture of the Mashiach. Chezkiyahu, picture of the Mashiach. All these powerful individuals and humble individuals. Pictures of the Mashiach on what he would do. So look at this. 2 Chronicles 35 verse 1 and verse 17. And Josiah performed a Passover in Jerusalem to Yahuwah, and they killed the Passover offering on the 14th of the month. When?
14.
Verse 17, and the sons of Israel who were found performed the Passover at that time and the Feast of Unleavened Bread 7 days. So note that the Feast of Unleavened Bread is 7 days, not 8 days.
Amen.
You have Passover as by itself. The Chag Hamatzot is a whole Moedim of its own.
Yeah.
7 days. Passover is on the 14th. The first day of Unleavened Bread is the 15th. If we want to be rabbinic, then we'll wait till the end of the 14th. Then say, okay, this is the 15th day. Now we're going to have the Passover. That's what the rabbis did coming out of Babylon. That's where it comes from. Do your homework.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Jewish calendars today, no disrespect, beautiful, very wise men and women. I can't take anything from them. But sometimes you can be too smart for your own good.
Come on.
And you can be very intelligent and constantly go over and over and over and over something that was inherited while in bondage like Babylon. And imagine thousands of years of that practice, how deep, entrenched, and respected it will be. To where even those who believed in Jesus and then found out, no, his name is Yeshua, and then give their life, and they're still going to hold on. Well, the rabbis, they did it like this. Let's just, for the sake of unity, let's just, keep the faith for the sake of unity. Yeah, keep the faith, not the traditions of men. Keep the emunah, the trust of those of old, not the traditions of men. And there's nothing wrong with a tradition. But when a tradition alters what is written and you call it a command, now we have a big problem.
Come on now.
So look at this. Chizkiyahu, Hezekiah, 2 Chronicles 30. I just read from about Josiah, 2 Chronicles 35, verse 1 and 17. 2 Chronicles now with King Hezekiah, chapter 30, verse 13 to 15, says this. And many people gathered to Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the second month. This broke me. I have a heart for people. And many of you have, all of you have a heart for people, but sometimes you need to have a heart for yourself. You need to love yourself. You need to love people, love yourself also. He spilled his blood, shed his blood for you too.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need a reality check to look at that. We need to love ourselves also. So look at this. And many people gathered to Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the second month, a very great multitude. And they rose up and took away the altars in Jerusalem, and all the incense altars they removed, and they threw them into the torrent of the Kidron. And then they killed the Passover offering on the 14th of the second month. And the priests and the Levites were ashamed and sanctified themselves and brought in burnt offerings to the house of Yahuwah. Did you hear what they just did? They removed the idol worship of Ashtaroth from their life forever. They removed the rituals of fertility goddess stuff out of their life. You can't listen to me. If you know someone that wants to come to a Passover Seder and yet they're going to go to the Easter Bunny's lap a couple weeks after that, rebuke them in love, an admonition of love, and tell them, let me tell you something, please listen. Let me give you a historical account of what you're about to do. Don't do it. You're a believer, right? Yes. Can I share the word with you in love, with complete sincerity and truth and humility? Let's look at what the word says. Look at what that generation went and did because they were unclean the month of. The second month they went and removed, destroyed the altars and the idol worship and made it as if it never existed. Then they prepared a place to receive the Passover lamb and the blood that would be put on the doorpost, and they internalized. That's what you call eating. They internalized the power of the Passover lamb, and they were forever changed. You can't go and say, I'm coming to Passover to do what? I'm going to come check it out. then you better just keep on stepping from the entrance, the exits back there, just keep on going. Good job, keep going. You don't come check out the things of Yah. He did not command us, hey, when you come out of the land of Mitzrayim, hey, come check it out. Check out the covenant and just, you let me know what you think. No, he commands, he says, if you want to be my bride, I want to be your husband. Then here's the ketubah, here's the instructions of our relationship. Do you agree or disagree? Naseh v'nishma, I will do and I will perform all that you have said because it's proof that I love you.
Yeah.
You can't partake of two different husbands. You cannot do that. So my encouragement to everyone, if you're contemplating the Easter bunny, want me to hop around like the bunny? I won't do that. Some of you are like this, yeah, do it. No, I'm not going to do that. But you know what I'm talking about. You go to the malls just to walk around. Sometimes me and my wife will go like to just walk around, just to get exercise and just to hear and see things. And I'm tempted to go over and stand in line for the Easter bunny. And just stand in line like that. I want to go all the way. I'm just waiting, looking at the little ones. I want to stand in line and then take that off and say, hey, you know what? Can I share something with you? But security, you know, they would come get you. You're disrupting the Easter bunny. You can't do that stuff. So look at this. We serve the Father of second chances. That's why the Passover is the only one that can be observed in the second month. Because the Father's telling us, I am the Father of second chances. If you failed all the way up to this moment and you couldn't come to the Passover at that time, there's a second chance for you. But you have to show me, like that generation did in Chronicles. Destroy the altars and idols of worship. The fallacies of jealousy, get those out of my nostrils and out of my sight. Show me that you love me by destroying the paganism that you once practiced. And never return to that ever again. But it's hard. I know. It's hard. You know, if I remove the Christmas tree, my family's not going to talk to me anymore. I know. So the Father who loves them and loves you more than anything, He says, do you trust me?
That's right.
Do you trust me? Yes, I do, but this, you know, there's no buts in love. You know what I'm talking about. There's no but this, but that. There's not. It's yes or no. Yes or no. You remove it. With my family, I said, that's it. You guys don't like it, you can go out with the Christmas tree. No, I didn't do that. I just presented it in love. I presented it in love. And it was accepted, and I was like, you're going to have to do the rest also, Father, because this was tough for me too. I love the smell of the Christmas tree. All that says smells good. There's nothing wrong with the trees where they are. Don't create an idol and put it down and nail it to your floor and then decorate it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where was I at? So look at this. Yeah, we serve the Father of second chances. And it is usually those who see, listen, it is usually those who see the beauty of this Passover experience in the lives of those prior to them that creates a stirring inside them so powerful that it becomes that generation of the second chance that removes the leaven of idolatry and paganism and strife from the place where Yahuwah desires to place His name inside your heart. It's usually that generation coming. You were that generation coming, and then you became the one to remove that. Because you saw a generation prior to you with the beauty of this feast you never even knew about. And it stirred you that you decided to destroy the place where He wants to, destroy the things that were raised up in the place where He wants His name and His name alone, which was on the flesh of your heart. Ezra the scribe and the Kohen after the Babylonian exile, Ezra chapter 6 verse 19 to 22 says this. And the sons of the exile performed the Passover on the 14th of the first month. For the priests and the Levites were purified together, all of them were pure. And they slaughtered the Passover lamb for all the sons of the exile, and for their brothers, the priests, and for themselves. And the sons of Israel ate, those who had returned from the captivity, and who had all separated themselves to them from the impurity of the nations of the land, to seek Yahuwah the Elohim. This is so beautiful, watch. Of Israel. And they performed the feast of unleavened bread also for 7 days with joy. When's the Passover? 14th. When's the unleavened bread begin? The 15th. For what? 7 days, not 8. The rabbis added in a day. And we want to bash those who want to walk in the truth of the Melech Tzaddik order of things truthfully. And then embrace what the rabbis say when it comes to everything else. And not even try to bash the rabbis at all, because there's a lot of awesome things there. But I'm saying let's stick to what the Torah says. And that's it. Look at this. For Yahuwah had made them joyful and had turned the heart of the king of Assyria to them, to make their hands strong in the work of the house of Elohim, the Elohim of Israel. Notice the 7 days and not 8 days for the feast of unleavened bread. So I want to give you guys an insight here. The word for seek in this phrase is the Hebrew word drash, like midrash, to search out. Darash is first seen in Genesis chapter 9, verse 5, where Yahuwah, look at what it says. You read it for yourself, or listen. Where Yahuwah will seek out the blood and soul of every man. Because of the fall, man's blood would be spilled by beasts and by man. But Yahuwah declares that he will search out the spilled blood no matter where it was spilled. Yahuwah desires the soul of man because your soul belongs to him. And he lovingly placed the souls in a warm place filled with life, the rivers of life that flow through your veins. Read Genesis 9:5. Because of the fall, he says, man's blood will be spilled by beasts and spilled by man. But I come to seek out the blood that was spilled. Ezekiel says it, in your blood, I saw you in your blood, but I came to seek you out. And I said, what? Live in me. I don't know about you guys, that helps me out. So I'm going to be able to sleep really good tonight. Because I'm encouraged with the word of God. Sometime before the 1st century, before the Common Era, the very merger took place of Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We see this influence in the Besorot, or what's known as the Gospels. The influence was embedded in at least 100 plus years before the Mashiach. Yahuwah Yahushua Mashiach comes to set things back in order because he is our Passover lamb who takes away the sin of the land. That's why it's called the Passover Seder, the setting of things straight. One of the ancient rabbis that Judaism quotes, he says this. Look at, some of the stuff is just so powerful. It's like you want to jump up and down. How come you can't see that that's Yeshua? Oh my gosh, it's right there. It's not your timing. It's not your time. It's his timing. He knows what he's doing. He will seek out the spilled blood. Look at, or listen. Here's this quote. Powerful. If a king will arise from the house of David, who, like the King David, his ancestor, delves deeply into the study of the Torah and observes the mitzvot as prescribed thereby, if he compels all of Israel to walk in the way of the Torah and repair its breaches in its observance, we may with assurance consider him to be the Mashiach.
Yeah.
That's in Hilchot Melachim 11:4. Read it. And there's more to it. They said the Mashiach could be the one who is of the line of David. He come to teach us the Torah properly. He will interpret it correctly. That's why it says, I did not come to do away with the law.
That's right.
I came to fulfill it. The right translation should be, I did. He's making a declaration that the school of Shammai knew about, and the school of Hillel. He says, I come to interpret the Torah correctly. That's why I told that fig tree, you be withered away. In other words, he says, I'm making a spiritual and natural declaration that will unleash the spiritual authority that belongs to me. Fig tree, be no more. You were a problem since the garden when they began covering themselves with what?
Excuses.
Eleh is excuses, which is the same word for fig leaves. So I'm causing all the excuses, you Sanhedrin Council, to diminish and never have any weight to it. And it's time for you to walk uprightly. I'm passing the authority onto my Talmudim, my disciples. This is the order of the Melech Tzaddik. I cause the old to wither away, and I pass the authority on to the Talmudim, who will be the beginning stems for the Melech Tzaddik order of power and righteousness in these end times. I came to set things straight, beginning at the Passover season where he sheds his blood, he says. What priest are you serving? What priesthood are you in? These words from one of the most respected rabbis in the Orthodox circles are highly valued. Based on the Torah truth and messianic expectations, the promised Mashiach was to be a man of Torah in every respect. It was also understood that the Mashiach would repair the breaches in the Torah and its understanding. On this important note, we learn from the Midrash Rabbah some rabbinic writings. See, that's why I give the disclaimer in the beginning. So someone says, oh, he said Midrash Rabbah, click off. See, he's teaching the Talmud. It's happened. I don't teach the Talmud. I'm just grabbing some things to just qualify what we already know also in their studies and in their circles. So based on Genesis 49, 10 through 11, look at their commentaries and their midrashes that they have. He washes his garments in wine. He intimates that he, the Messiah, will compose for them words of the Torah, profound new revelations of Torah, never seen or heard before, and his vesture is dipped in the blood of grapes, that he will restore them to their errors, meaning that the Mashiach will correct Israel in their errors of the Torah when he walks on the earth, beginning with what? Beginning with the withered fig tree. Go read it. He fulfills this. Powerful. So let's get to the last question. Oh, I went way over. That's it. Forget it. There goes all that leaven stuff. You guys want me to go a little longer? Yeah. How about you behind the camera? I'm not going to move from here until I hear someone on the camera. They said yes. Come on. Yeah. Not yet. Almost. Just write your questions down. I'm going to give the last one, and then we'll open up for questions. I'll try to finish this in 5 minutes. So the last question that I had was, to rise or not to rise? And I made a sarcastic statement, that is the question. But I didn't make that part up. That is the question. But the question I did, to rise or not to rise? And I have a big sad face next to this statement that I have typed out. Many are breaking fellowship over bread, when we are to break bread before fellowship.
Yes.
If it doesn't look unleavened, I don't want to fellowship with you anymore. That is so sad. So sad. We've seen it for years now. So there's a difference of going from house to house, different things, but when you're just in one place and you see things come and flourish and then transitions, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. We've seen that now. For for 10 whole years, I can't make that sound like it's a long time. The past 10 years, it's our 10th Torah portion cycle season. We've seen men come and learn. Their wives and their little ones they don't want to go anywhere, and some have left on good terms and over time. I'm talking about those few that because of certain things, it's like, what do you do that for? Let's try to clear up some of this. Okay. I have a problem saying look at. Talking with my hands, I do a lot of talking with my hands, and then I say look, it's like, look at what you mean, listen? I get hammered at home, you have no idea. After I say, you know how many times you said look at that? I've always been like that.
Talking with
So
your
look at
hands.
it. Just like a lot of the young ones, they say like. They say like more than the conversation of the youth. So I'm just a few letters off. Look. I don't say like, I say look at. Anyways, so look at it. See? Oh my gosh, deliver me this Passover from saying look at. And listen, John, listen, okay, listen. Just don't argue with yourself, just listen. Just listen. So, listen, I'm learning. It is really interesting how Yahuwah uses the material things of this world to show us what is really on the inside of our hearts. Especially the things at the Passover table. On the night of Passover, we were instructed to eat in haste. Not even the bread had a chance to rise up due to the timing. Today, the rabbis have calculated that it takes the bread to rise around 18 minutes or so. That's pretty darn smart. To be able to just sit there and watch the bread. Someone trying to bug them. Stop. See, there's the leaven just rose up right there. Don't even wait for the bread. It's right there. Look at how you respond. You reacted. Response and reaction. What causes the bread to rise? Air. The bread's already rising when you're mixing the dough. See those bubbles, how they disappear? The bubbles pop because the air is actually captured inside of what you're mixing. The air is the primary first source to cause it to rise. The chametz is birthed out of the air. The air gives birth to the chametz, so the chametz is actually connected to the wind. I can really go there. Doesn't the Messiah say the bread is like the body? So that means the body produces the origins of the bread. And the body actually contains the air that is blowing. So the true chametz comes from the very air that is spoken sometimes. And depending on where you are will determine what you're hearing, and it will be the factor of what type of chametz is inside of you. So look at it. There I go again. My mind's wrapped on it. Listen. So listen. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm on my own little world right here. So let's look at this bread, or listen to this. I'm just going to flow. Looking at the Passover night with Yahushua and his Talmudim. The lesson of the unleavened bread is to remove the rising confrontation and sin within. Escape from the uprising, and bread is symbolic of the body. Matthew 26, verse 6. Take, eat. This is my body. The body is to be free of chametz, leaven, in order to rise. Bread, and there's many different words for bread. The bread symbol presented by Yahushua at the last Passover supper was it a piece of matzah? Was it a cracker? Did he pop open a matzah box? See, it's just fancy now. Everything's fancy. The matzah, cracker, square, okay, the stripes here. This is Jesus' stripes. See the holes? He was pierced. There's a teaching in there, right? And it's flat. Why? Because he's without sin. So that means he can be broken real easy too? No. There's a lot of good teachings in there, but in all reality, it was more like a pita bread. Look at it. One of the words used, the predominant word, I hope you guys can really hear what I'm saying. I don't want to be put in a category, but I want you to hear what I'm saying. But I need a witness. And he don't know I'm going to call him, but I'm going to call him. Just a yes or no, you know. The Greek word artos, can it go either way for any type of bread? Yeah, open it. It can. Unleavened, leavened. It just depends on what's happening. Artos is food, bread, showbread, food, loaf, meat, carne asada. Victuals, bread, a loaf. It means to lift. Its origin, if you use the polyglots and you start doing your homework on the study of words, polyglots is a nice little tool, you'll find that this word, artos, is connected to lechem and other words for bread. And one of the words that it is connected to is very interesting, comes from the root word nasa, which means to rise up. So artos, depending on how it's being used, can be a type of bread that is rising up. The Messiah says, take, eat, for this is my body. His body is unleavened, but when you eat something, listen, please listen. Whatever you eat in this world, whether it is kosher or non-kosher, whatever goes in your mouth becomes chametz, rising, leaven. Everything is risen to a whole nother level. Whatever you put in your mouth is raised to a whole nother level. Chametz comes from a word that means to ferment. Leavened bread. The root is Strong's number 2556. I know I don't even use that anymore. But go look it up. Strong's Concordance, word 2556. Which means to be sour or fermented. How many people have their fermented cabbage? I did it. Yeah. So you ferment something, and I tried to, you should have seen me behind these dictionaries. I need a good definition, because I'm trying to capture fermentation. Where's a good definition? In my mind, I was like full of leaven trying to get this thing. It was messing me up. So look at this, or listen, something. The root is Strong's 2556, which means to be sour, fermented. So the bread is to be without chametz. And yet the wine is to be chametz. What? So the bread is without leaven, but the wine is leavened? It's fermented wine, grapes, right? Yeah. That's called chametz. The bread is without chametz, but the blood is. So if you get unleavened bread, you do the math. I'm not making a declaration. I already said this to some learned people on email, and they could not answer this. So if you get unleavened bread and you dip it in fermented wine and you eat that, what do you have? You have chametz in your hand, in your mouth. The Mashiach knew what he was doing. He didn't leave it alone. He dipped it in the sop, in the wine, in the fermentation. He transformed. Okay, artos means unleavened. Let's go with that. But he did something different. He says, because of the wine, which is my blood, my body, my bread is going to be leavened for rising, not for sin. Right. Chametz. Fermented. Yeah. I already heard it all. So I got hammered. And I laughed. And I went to bed nice. Yes. Yohanan.
There's actually a Greek word of zoomos.
Zoomos is another.
Which means unleavened.
Yes.
So the fact that that word is not used,
yes,
and artos is used instead, it says a whole lot in of itself as well.
Thank you. And that was the other part that I had. Thank you. So I'm going to skip that. And that's the truth. You have different words, but they chose artos. Artos.
Actually, advertise orange juice for Passover.
See what I mean? They're just constantly bringing the leaven in.
Yeah.
Bringing it all. So listen, I'm done. I'm going to be done right here, right now. So I'm going to go over a couple things. Chametz. Chet mem tzadik sofit. So the bread is to be without chametz, and yet the wine is to be chametz. Psalm 71 verse 4, the word chametz here is translated as cruelty. Listen. Chametz can be cruelty. Cruelty should be removed from the bread or from the body. In Psalm 73:21, the word chametz or chamatz, the root of it, is translated as grieved. Remove the grief from your hearts, from the body, from the bread. With joy we celebrate the Moedim. In Isaiah 63 verse 1, we have one coming from Edom whose garments are dyed in what? Grapes, right? Look up the word dyed. It's chamatz. His garments are filled with chametz. That's Isaiah 61. Who comes from Edom? The Mashiach comes. From judging. And it says his garments are dipped in chametz. Chametz comes from the parent root cham, which means to be red hot. And this speaks of an infusion of two things. The heat it takes to fuse two things together and make them one. In other words, the ultimate thing for Passover is this. Do not bring two hot entities together and fuse them together and say it's of me. Keep it separated. Don't misinterpret the master's body, for some have fallen asleep because they mixed it with the ways of the Corinthians, with the ways of the Romans, with the ways of the religions of the world. He says, I'm going to get this unleavened bread or this artas. You go and prayerfully say, Abba, what is this bread, this artas, this lechem? Because it's lechem when you take it back. It's lechem. That just means bread. It actually means strength. Bread is strength and power. So he's saying this, do not mix that bread with the ways of the world. But I'll tell you what, that bread, artas, you go home and figure it out. He says, I'm going to dip it in the fermented wine. And then you're going to eat it. You're going to drink the wine. You're going to do that. Here's what you're going to do. There's two words. No, let me go back. When Yahushua spoke against the fig tree 3 days before his death, which would have been day number 2 of the examination of the land, he was speaking against the hypocrisy of the Sanhedrin Council. He didn't leave the nation without a righteous system of judgment, since that is the command of the Torah. He transferred this authority from the disqualified system upon the Nazarene high court officiated by his brother James, Yaakov, and Peter, Kepha, in Jerusalem. And this is the basis for Matthew 16:19. Upon this rock I will build my assembly, and the gates of hell will not prevail, because they are covered in my blood. They are not mixed with the chametz of the Sanhedrin. They are dipped in the chametz, the fermentation of my blood that has been resonating and sitting for 6,000 years since the fall of Adam. It's been fermented for 6,000 years. In this case, 4,000 years. That's why the 10th day, the 14th day, 4 days, 4,000 years. Psalm 90 verse 4. A day with Yah is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. He says, my wine, my blood has been fermented for 4 days. Am I talking too loud? I'm not trying to yell at you guys. I'm just a little excited. Because it makes sense. Whatsoever is permitted in heaven, make it so on the earth. And what is not permitted in heavenly courts, make sure it is not practiced and permitted on the earth. Keep the world of chametz out of the spiritual set-apartness of chametz, of that which causes things to ferment, of righteousness, away from that. Don't mix the two. I can already hear some. The leaven deals, the leaven of the Mashiach. That's why it says, do not partake of the leaven of the Pharisees, but the unleavened word of truth, of sincerity. That means it is not mixed with what they have. It is absent of that rising. That old priesthood system they're trying to do has risen up. To be away from that is to be unleavened, but that doesn't mean that you won't rise. Did you guys get that?
Yes.
We will rise in Mashiach, so we're in a different fermentation category of chametz. That's just what it is.
Amen.
We're unleavened from there, but over in Mashiach, we're chametz. We're leavened to rise in righteousness, not in unrighteousness. So you guys are going to hear something you didn't hear. The Melech Tzaddik order of authority was transferred to the beginning kingdom of priests, the disciples of Yahushua HaMashiach. The leaven was now removed of the Pharisees and transformed into a rising heat of righteousness within the assembly of the righteous ones, the Melech Tzaddik order of true power and filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. The chametz we are to have is the infilling of the Ruach HaKodesh and His power. The infilling, as some might say in a Pentecostal church, you need the Holy Ghost and power. You need the power of His Spirit. Did His body stay in the grave? What did it do?
Rose.
What makes bread rise? He says His body was bread. Say it. Don't be shy. Look at it. Come on. The wind,
The Ruach.
the Ruach caused Him to rise. That righteous leaven of the Spirit caused His bread to rise. And yet we come to Passover and we say, I'm not going there anymore because they're promoting this and that. No, stay connected. The Father would not tell you to isolate away from things during the high holy days or Moedim. Come together. That's not the spirit of Abba. He commands us to come together on the Moedim. If you go another place, that's fine too. Be gathered. Don't stay isolated. That's dangerous. Because then you're going to think you're hearing from the Spirit of Yah during the Moedim where He says to come out and to join in. That can be very dangerous. I've seen destruction happen to a family years ago, and warning went forth. They didn't want to listen. Everything went to hell, and it was horrible. So now we see this power on Shavuot. So there's two words for leaven. You have chametz and seor. The same name of the mountains of Esau. I'm going to actually just end with this. 1 Corinthians 5, 7 through 8, and I'm done. Therefore cleanse out the old leaven, so that you are a new lump. Notice it says, clean out the old leaven. What's the connotation?
New leaven.
New leaven. In Mashiach, you will rise again.
Right.
In Messiah, we will rise again.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
So if radical Islam say they came and bum rushed this place, we would fight them tooth and nail. I know that. But if our lives were taken just before they say, you have any final words? Oh yeah. But it's not the final for all eternity. Just for now, in this temporary shell, I will rise again in the Messiah.
Come on.
Because He rose again. So remove the old leaven. It says that means there's a new leaven. So to have no part of the leaven of the Pharisees is to be unleavened of that. But to have the Spirit of Yah in you is to be expanded and leavened with righteousness. It just means it's filled. Chametz is not a bad word. It just means something fused together with heat. And what's the last thing to leave from a person when they die? The last chemical connection is heat. And what does it do? It rises, it's gone from our sights, but it never ceases to exist. For also the Messiah, our Passover, was offered up for us. So then let us observe the festival not with the old leaven, nor with the leaven of evil and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, filled with the Messiah, with the Mashiach and His Spirit. And I'm done. I want to encourage you guys, as we're coming to Passover, I wanted to just give you something. I'm not taking any questions. I'm going to bring John up. He's going to answer everything. And Lorenzo. You guys have any questions? Ruben, I hope I don't know you guys. Dwight, Rob. Robert, Bernie, and Johnny are always ready. We're going to keep those two guys quiet. I'm just kidding. When I'm done, I have to leave though. Me and my daughter, we have to leave. We do have to go. We got to take care of something. And so I want to say thank you guys for being a blessing. And I just pray that during this season, hopefully you guys learned a few things here and you can expand on it. Just know that in Mashiach, it's a totally different thing. He did give us the Melech Tzedek order of things that no one else was doing. He brought a totally different, ancient, truthful